The rain hammered against the window of the modest two-bedroom house in suburban Cleveland as I stood in the hallway, my worn suitcase at my feet. My hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from disbelief. My son Michael stood 5 feet away, his face twisted with an anger I had never seen before. Behind him, arms crossed and lips pursed in satisfaction, was Jessica, my daughter-in-law. She'd been waiting for this moment for 3 years. "Get out," Michael said, his voice low and dangerous. "I mean it, Mom. If you will not go to a nursing home, then get the hell out of my house." "Michael, please," I whispered, my throat tight. "This is a misunderstanding. I can explain the credit card charges. I was not trying to steal from you." Jessica stepped forward, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. "A misunderstanding?" she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Margaret, we found $12,000 in charges on Michael's card. Cruises, jewelry, cash advances. How exactly do you explain that?" I opened my mouth, but the words would not come. How could I tell them the truth? How could I explain that I had not made a single one of those charges? That someone had stolen Michael's card information, and I had been trying to fix it quietly before he found out. What? But Jessica had made sure he found out first. She had planted the seed of doubt, showed him the statements, convinced him his own mother was robbing him blind. "I raised you alone," I said, tears streaming down my face. "After your father died, I worked 3 jobs to put you through college. I never asked you for anything, Michael. Not once." His jaw clenched. "That was your choice. You are 72 years old. You need professional care. We have 3 kids. We cannot afford to support you anymore." I felt something break inside my chest. We cannot afford it. I had been living in their guest room for 2 years, paying them $600 a month from my tiny Social Security check. I bought my own food. I babysat their children for free while they went on date nights and weekend trips. "I never asked you to support me," I said quietly. "I pay my way." Jessica laughed, actually laughed. $600 a month? Do you know what assisted living costs? You are a financial burden, Margaret. Michael is just too kind to say it. I looked at my son, the boy I had rocked to sleep, the teenager I had defended against bullies, the young man I had believed in when everyone else said he would amount to nothing. "Please," I whispered, "do not do this." Michael looked away. "I have made my decision. You have 1 hour to pack your things and leave. If you are not gone by then, I will call the police and have you removed for theft." Ah! The words hit me like physical blows. My own son was going to have me arrested. After everything I had sacrificed, everything I had given up, I bent down and picked up my suitcase. It was already packed. I had known this was coming. Jessica had been building to this for months, poisoning Michael against me drop by drop. "Fine," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I will go." I walked to the door, my legs feeling like lead. I paused with my hand on the knob and turned back one last time. "Michael," I said softly, "there are things you do not know about me, about your father, about where we came from. I kept those things from you to protect you, but one day you're going to learn the truth, and when you do, I hope you can forgive yourself for this moment." He did not respond. Jessica smirked. I stepped out into the rain. The cheap motel on Route 37 smelled like mildew and cigarette smoke. I sat on the edge of the sagging bed, my wet clothes clinging to my skin, and finally let myself cry. Not gentle tears, but deep, racking sobs that shook my entire body. I had $43 in my checking account. My Social Security check would not come for another 2 weeks. I had nowhere to go, no one to call. My sister had died 5 years ago. My few friends were all elderly themselves, barely scraping by. I had spent my entire life making sure Michael would never know poverty, never know fear, never know the darkness I had escaped. And this was how it ended. I must have cried myself to sleep because I woke to knocking on the door. The digital clock on the nightstand said 11:47. I had been asleep for almost 3 hours. The knocking came again, firm and insistent. "Who is it?" I called out, my voice hoarse. "Ms. Margaret Holloway," a man's voice said. "I need to speak with you. It is urgent." My maiden name. No one had called me that in 45 years. Not since I married Richard and became Margaret Chen. "I am not interested," I said, assuming it was some kind of scam. "Please go away." "Ms. Holloway," the voice continued, patient but firm. "I represent the law firm of Blackwell, Strauss, and Montgomery. I have been searching for you for 6 months. It concerns the estate of your father, Edward Holloway. My blood ran cold. I had not heard my father's name spoken aloud in over 4 decades. My father is dead, I said. He died in 1979. Yes, ma'am, the voice confirmed. I am aware. That is why I need to speak with you. You are his sole surviving heir. I walked to the door on shaking legs and peered through the peephole. A man in his 50s stood in the hallway, wearing an expensive suit and holding a leather briefcase. Behind him, barely visible in the dim light, was a black limousine. I opened the door a crack, the chain still engaged. I do not understand, I said. My father left me nothing. He disowned me when I was 27. The man smiled gently. May I come in, Ms. Holloway? This conversation is rather complex, and the hallway is not the appropriate venue. Something in his eyes, a genuine kindness, made me undo the chain. He stepped inside, glanced around the dingy room, and his expression flickered with something that might have been pity. He set his briefcase on the small table and opened it, pulling out a thick folder. My name is Robert Strauss, he said, handing me a business card. I am the senior partner at Blackwell, Strauss and Montgomery. We have been the legal representatives for the Holloway family for 3 generations. I stared at the card, my hands trembling. Miss Holloway, he continued, sitting down in the room's only chair. Your father passed away in 1979, as you stated. However, his estate was placed in a trust with very specific instructions. You were named as the sole beneficiary, but the trust could only be released under certain conditions. What conditions? I whispered. He pulled out a document and handed it to me. The first condition was that you could not access the trust while you were married. Your father believed your husband, Richard Chen, was only interested in the family money. My hands clenched around the paper. My father had said terrible things about Richard when I told him I was pregnant and getting married. He'd called Richard a gold digger, an opportunist, a man who would destroy the Holloway name. We had fought viciously, and I had walked away from everything. My inheritance, my family name, my trust fund. I had chosen love over money. Richard died 7 years ago, I said quietly. I know, Mr. Strauss said gently. That was when we began searching for you. The second condition was that we could only contact you if you were, and I quote, living in a state of genuine financial need. Your father wanted to ensure you learned the value of hard work and independence before inheriting his fortune. I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. Genuine financial need? I have been poor for 45 years. Where were you when I was working 3 jobs to feed my son? Where were you when I could not afford my husband's cancer treatments? Mr. Strauss's expression softened. Your father's will was explicit. We could not contact you while you were married, and we could not contact you if you had any significant assets or income. For most of your life, you were married. After your husband's death, you were living with your son, and our investigators determined you were not in sufficient need. And now, I asked, my voice hollow. Now, he said quietly, you are alone, homeless, with $43 to your name. Our investigators confirmed this afternoon that you meet all the conditions of the trust. He pulled out another document, this one thick and bound with a red ribbon. Ms. Holloway, your father's estate has been held in trust for 45 years. With investments and compound interest, the total value currently stands at $2.4 billion. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the bed to keep from falling. That is not possible, I whispered. My father was wealthy, but not that wealthy. Your father owned Holloway Industries, Mr. Strauss said. At the time of his death, it was valued at $80 million. The trustees, acting on his instructions, invested wisely. The company went public in 1985. The stock split 4 times. The investments multiplied. Miss Holloway, you are one of the wealthiest women in America. You just did not know it. I could not breathe, could not think. Why? I finally asked. Why did he do this? Why make me suffer? Mr. Strauss pulled out a letter, yellowed with age. Your father left this for you. He wanted you to read it when the time came. I took the letter with shaking hands and unfolded it. My father's handwriting, sharp and precise, filled the page. Margaret, it began, if you are reading this, then I am dead, and you have finally met the conditions of my will. I know you hate me. I know you think I was cruel to reject you and your husband. Perhaps I was. But I watched my own father squander the Holloway fortune on frivolous children and worthless hangers-on. I watched him destroy himself with indulgence and excess. I rebuilt this family's wealth through discipline, sacrifice, and hard work. I wanted you to understand those values. I wanted you to build a life through your own strength, not my money. I wanted you to know what you were capable of without the crutch of wealth. If you are reading this, then you have survived. You have built a life. You have raised a child without my help, and that child has grown strong enough to support themselves. You have proven you do not need my money. And now, because you do not need it, you may have it. Use it wisely. Use it to build something lasting. And know that despite everything, I was always proud of you, your father, Edward Holloway. I read it 3 times, tears blurring the words. My father had forced me into poverty to teach me a lesson. He had watched me struggle, watched me suffer, and called it character building. Part of me wanted to tear the letter to pieces. Part of me understood. What happens now? I asked Mr. Strauss. He smiled. Now, Ms. Holloway, you've signed these documents and the trust is released to you. You will have immediate access to liquid assets of approximately $50 million. The remaining wealth is tied up in stocks, real estate, and the family company. You will need to decide what you want to do with Holloway Industries. I stared at him. The company still exists? Very much so, he said. It is currently run by a board of directors, but as the sole shareholder, you have complete control. You can sell it, keep it, restructure it. The choice is yours. I looked down at my hands, wrinkled and spotted with age. This morning, I had been homeless. Now, I was a billionaire. I need time, I said. I need to think. Of course, Mr. Strauss said. But might I suggest you not spend another night in this motel? I have taken the liberty of reserving a suite at the Ritz-Carlton. The limousine is waiting outside. I almost laughed. 12 hours ago, my son had thrown me out into the rain. Now a stranger was offering me a limousine and a luxury suite. Why not? I said quietly. Why the hell not? The suite at the Ritz-Carlton had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I stood there for a long time, watching the lights, trying to process what had happened. Mr. Strauss had left me with the documents and a phone number. Sign and return them, he had said. Take your time. Call me when you are ready. About the look on his face when he told me to leave, about Jessica's smirk. They had thrown me out thinking I was a burden, a thief, a broken old woman with nothing to offer. They had no idea what they had just done. I picked up the hotel phone and dialed Mr. Strauss. He answered on the second ring. Ms. Holloway, I hope the suite is to your liking. It is perfect, I said. I have a question about Holloway Industries. Of course, he said. What would you like to know? My son Michael Chen works in finance. What would it take to hire your firm to conduct a thorough investigation into his employer's business practices? There was a pause. May I ask why? Let us just say, I replied, that I want to understand exactly what kind of man my son has become. And I want to know if his wife has been as honest with him as she claims to be. I could hear the smile in Mr. Strauss's voice. Consider it done, Ms. Holloway. I will have a full report within 2 weeks. One more thing, I said. I want to remain anonymous. No one can know about my inheritance yet. Can you arrange that? Absolutely, he said. We are very good at discretion. I hung up and stared out at the city again. Tomorrow, I would sign the documents. I would take control of my father's empire. But tonight, I allowed myself to feel the weight of what had happened. My son had abandoned me. But in doing so, he had set me free. 2 weeks later, I sat in Mr. Strauss's office, reading through the investigation report. It was worse than I had imagined. Michael's employer, Grandview Financial, was under investigation for embezzlement and fraud. Michael was not directly involved, but he had been signing off on documents without properly reviewing them. At best, he was negligent. At worst, he could be charged as an accessory. And Jessica, sweet manipulative Jessica. She had been having an affair for 18 months. Her lover was a divorced real estate agent with expensive tastes and mounting debts. The $12,000 in credit card charges? Jessica had made them, not me. She had set me up, knowing Michael would believe her over me. She wanted me gone, so she could have complete control over Michael, his income, and their home. She was planning to divorce him as soon as his career advancement made it financially worthwhile. I set down the report and looked at Mr. Strauss. "Can we stop the investigation into Grandview Financial?" He frowned. "We do not have that kind of influence, Ms. Holloway. The SEC is involved. It is out of our hands." "Can we help Michael if he is charged?" "We can provide excellent legal representation," he said carefully, "but he will have to face the consequences of his actions." I nodded slowly. "I want you to arrange a meeting with him." "Do not tell him who is requesting it. Just tell him a potential investor wants to discuss his future." Mr. Strauss smiled. "As you wish." Michael arrived at the Blackwell, Strauss, and Montgomery offices at 2 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. I watched him through a one-way window as he waited in the conference room, nervous and checking his phone constantly. He looked tired, older. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his suit, while expensive, was wrinkled. Mr. Strauss entered the conference room and I followed. Michael looked up, confused. Then he saw me, and the color drained from his face. "Mom," he whispered. "Hello, Michael," I said calmly, sitting down across from him. He stared at me, then at Mr. Strauss, then back at me. "What is going on? Why are you here?" "I am here," I said, "because Mr. Strauss works for me. I am his client." Michael's confusion deepened. "I do not understand." I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Inside was a copy of the trust documents, the letter from my father, and the investigation report. "Read," I said. He opened the folder. I watched his face as he read, watched the disbelief turn to shock, turn to horror. "This is not real," he said finally, his voice shaking. "This is some kind of joke. It is very real," Mr. Strauss said. "Your mother is the sole heir to the Holloway fortune. She is worth $2.4 billion. Michael's hands started to shake. He looked at me, his eyes wide. "You knew? When I threw you out, you knew about this?" "No," I said. "I learned about it an hour after you kicked me into the rain, but I have known for 2 weeks and I did not contact you." "Why?" he whispered. "Because I wanted to know the truth," I said. "I wanted to know if you really believed I was a thief, if you really thought so little of me." I pushed the second part of the report toward him. "Keep reading." He turned the pages and I watched as he discovered Jessica's affair, the proof that she had made the charges and framed me, the evidence that she was planning to divorce him. "No," he said, his voice breaking. "No, no, no. She set me up," I said quietly. "And you believed her without question. You threw out your mother based on the word of a woman who was lying to your face every single day." Michael put his head in his hands and started to cry. "I am so sorry," he sobbed. "Mom, I am so sorry. I did not know. I thought I was protecting my family. Jessica kept saying you were taking advantage of us, that you were draining our savings." "I was paying you rent," I said, my voice hard. "I was babysitting your children for free. I bought my own groceries. What exactly was I taking advantage of?" He could not answer. "And now," I continued, "you are going to face charges for your role in the Grandview embezzlement. Your wife is cheating on you and planning to take half of everything you own. And your mother, the woman you threw away like garbage, is a billionaire. Please," he whispered. "Please, Mom. I will do anything. I will fix this. I will make it right." I stood up. "Mr. Strauss will provide you with excellent legal representation for the charges you are facing. I will pay for it because, despite everything, you are still my son. But Michael, you and I are done." His head snapped up. "What?" "You made your choice," I said. "You chose Jessica over me. You chose cruelty over compassion. You threw me into the street without a second thought. Those are not the values I raised you with." I walked to the door and paused. "I loved you more than anything in this world," I said. "I gave up billions of dollars to raise you in peace, away from the darkness of my family's wealth. I sacrificed everything so you could have a normal, happy life. And when I needed you, just once, you cast me aside like trash." "Mom," he begged, "please do not do this." "I'm not doing anything," I said. "You already did it. You just have to live with it now." I left the conference room and did not look back. 6 months later, I sat in the executive office of Holloway Industries. Looking out at the city skyline, Mr. Strauss stood beside me, holding a financial report. The restructuring is complete, he said. We have divested from the problematic subsidiaries, increased worker wages, and implemented the ethical guidelines you requested. Profits are down 8%, but employee satisfaction is at an all-time high. Good, I said. Profit is not the only measure of success, he smiled. Your father would have disagreed. My father, I said, was wrong about many things. Mr. Strauss set down the report. Michael's trial concluded yesterday. The legal team you provided secured a plea deal. He received 2 years probation and a $100,000 fine. No jail time? And Jessica? Moved to California with her boyfriend. Divorce was finalized last month. She received 40% of the marital assets. I nodded. It was what I had expected. He has tried to contact you, Mr. Strauss said carefully. 17 times in the last 6 months. I know, I said. I get the messages. Will you respond? I thought about it. Thought about the son I had raised. The man he had become. The choice he had made. Maybe, I said finally. Someday, when he has learned what I had to learn. Mr. Strauss nodded and left me alone in the office. Turned back to the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Michael was rebuilding his life, learning to survive without his wife, without his career, without his mother. Just as I had learned to survive without my father's money, just as I had learned to survive without my son's love. Maybe in time he would understand, but he would learn the value of sacrifice, of hard work, of choosing principle over convenience. Maybe he would become the man I had always hoped he would be. But until then, I had work to do, a company to run, a fortune to use for good, a legacy to build that my father would never have imagined. I picked up the phone and dialed. Mr. Strauss, I said, I want to establish a foundation for elderly people who have been abandoned by their families. I want to provide housing, medical care, legal support, whatever they need. He was quiet for a moment. That is a wonderful idea, Miss Holloway. And one more thing, I said. I want it to be anonymous. No one needs to know it comes from me. As you wish, he said. I hung up and turned back to the window. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. My son had thrown me out, thinking I was worth nothing. He'd been wrong. But more importantly, I had discovered that my worth had nothing to do with money. It never had. I had been valuable when I was poor, raising him alone, working 3 jobs, sacrificing everything. I had been valuable when I was homeless, sitting in that motel room with $43 and nowhere to go. And I was valuable now with billions at my disposal. Money did not define me. It never had. My father had tried to teach me that lesson through cruelty and deprivation. Instead, I had learned it through love, through sacrifice, through being cast aside by the person I loved most. It was a hard lesson. It's a painful one, but it was one I would never forget. I looked at my reflection in the window, an old woman with silver hair and tired eyes, and smiled. I had survived. I had endured. And now, finally, I was free. 3 years later, the Holloway Foundation had helped over 10,000 elderly people find housing, medical care, and legal support. It was the most rewarding work I had ever done. I sat in my office reviewing grant applications when my assistant knocked on the door. Miss Holloway, she said hesitantly, there is someone here to see you. He does not have an appointment, but he says it is personal. Who is it? I asked. She bit her lip. Says his name is Michael Chen. He says he is your son. My pen stopped moving across the paper. Had not seen Michael in 3 years. Had not spoken to him, though I knew from Mr. Strauss that he had rebuilt his life. He was working as a financial advisor now, helping low-income families manage their money. He had remarried a kind woman named Sarah, who worked as a teacher. He had grown up. Send him in, I said quietly. The door opened, and Michael stepped inside. He was thinner than I remembered, his hair touched with gray at the temples. Looked nervous, holding a small box in his hands. Hello, Mom, he said softly. Hello, Michael, I replied. We stared at each other for a long moment. I do not expect you to forgive me, he said finally. I do not deserve it. What I did was unforgivable. I threw you out when you needed me most. I believed lies over my own mother. I chose cruelty over compassion. He stepped closer, his eyes bright with unshed tears. But I want you to know that not a day has gone by that I have not regretted it. Not an hour. I see your face in my dreams, standing in the rain, and I hate myself for what I did. I said nothing, just watched him. I have spent the last 3 years trying to become the man you raised me to be, he continued. I left finance. I started helping people instead of exploiting them. I divorced Jessica. I met Sarah, and she has taught me what real love looks like. It's not manipulation, not control, just kindness. He set the box on my desk. I have been saving for 3 years to buy you this, he said. It is not much. It is nothing compared to what you deserve. But I wanted you to have it. I opened the box. Inside was a simple silver locket. I opened it and saw 2 pictures. It's one of me and Michael when he was 5, laughing at the beach. The other of me and Richard on our wedding day. I had these photos, Michael said, his voice breaking. These were always my favorites. You looked so happy. And I destroyed that happiness because I was weak and foolish and cruel. A tear slid down my cheek. I do not expect forgiveness, he said again. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. I understand what you sacrificed for me, what you gave up. And I am sorry it took losing you for me to see it. I stood up slowly and walked around the desk. Michael watched me, his body tense, as if expecting me to strike him or send him away. Instead, I pulled him into my arms and held him tight. He collapsed against me, sobbing like a child. I am so sorry, he kept saying. I am so sorry. I know, I whispered, stroking his hair like I used to when he was small. I know. We stood there for a long time, 2 broken people trying to find their way back to each other. Finally, I pulled back and looked at him. I cannot forgive you yet, I said honestly. What you did hurt too much, but I can try. If you are willing to work for it. I will do anything, he said. Anything. Then start by having dinner with me tonight, I said. And bring Sarah. I want to meet her. His face lit up with hope. Really? Really? I said. He nodded, wiping his eyes. Thank you, Mom. Thank you. After he left, I sat back down at my desk and opened the locket again. I stared at the picture of Richard and me, so young and full of hope. My father had wanted to teach me independence. Instead, he had taught me that love and money were incompatible, that wealth corrupted everything it touched, but he had been wrong. I had learned that real wealth was not measured in dollars. It was measured in sacrifice, in forgiveness, the courage to rebuild what had been broken. Michael had thrown me out, and in doing so, had given me back my life. My father's money had set me free, but it was my son's cruelty that had taught me my true worth. I closed the locket and held it against my heart. Some lessons could only be learned through pain. Some truths could only be discovered in darkness. And some inheritances were not about money at all. They were about learning who you were when everything was taken away. I had learned. And now, finally, I could teach my son what I knew. That real wealth was not something you inherited. It was something you built, one sacrifice at a time.